A school is a school, right? One school district is pretty much the same as another, isn't it? Or is it? Is a metropolitan education different than a rural education? Math is math, history is history, no matter the size of the school. Or is it? Do students in one school district have an advantage over another? East Central Superintendent Roland Toscano says no. And he's here to educate me about education in East Bexar County. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationship between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Roland Toscano is not only the superintendent of the East Central Independent School District, he's a product of it. After graduating from East Central High School, he earned a bachelor's degree from UTSA and a master's from Texas A&M Kingsville. Then he came back to San Antonio to become a student teacher in the East Central School District. He worked his way up to principal of East Central High School before being elected superintendent in 2014. Mr. Toscano, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you giving me some time.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm glad to have you. I don't know if you're aware that David McGinnis has brought East Central High School to BexarFest 4 times now.
I am aware.
And it's great. I'm so glad to have East Central participating in the festival. Over the 4 years, they've partnered with Conjunto Heritage Taller, San Anto Cultural Arts, San Antonio Soundgarden, and this year they're partnering with an organization called Mojo Rimba. It's for kids to learn how to play the marimbas and explore the arts. It's interesting to me that East Central has shown a preference for arts organizations. We let the teams choose what nonprofits they want to partner with, and all 4 years, East Central has chosen an arts organization. Does that surprise you?
It does not, particularly because we have some amazing instructors in the musical, performing, and visual arts departments. And our community for a long time has valued the arts. So much so that they recently supported the building of a community performing arts facility. Included within that are several instructional spaces for the arts. So not surprised at all.
That's excellent. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that. Given its size and location in the big world of San Antonio, East Central is not one of the first school districts people think about when they start talking about schools in and around San Antonio. What's the most important thing people don't know about East Central?
Well, it's a growing community. It's a combination of urban, suburban, and rural communities. It's very diverse, inclusive, 50,000 plus citizens, 10,000 plus students.
I had no idea. I had no idea it was even that big.
Absolutely. And, great value for the taxpayer. Second lowest, and it's been persistently among the lowest, but more recently the second lowest total tax rate in the county.
Excellent. Yeah. It's interesting. On the flip side of that growth coin, people don't realize the size of the East Central District. And there's going to be a new high school opening in your district next fall. Cast Lead?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that. How'd that come to be?
So it's a repurposed elementary school across from our current high school. Okay. So it's not a new facility. It is a renovated facility. And so we've been working really hard with our community for a long time to make sure that the value of their education was pleasing to our community. And so we spent a lot of time talking about academics and advanced academics and academic readiness and higher education. But at the same time, the community was saying, we don't want our kids just graduating and being book smart. We want them to be employable. Right. And so several years ago, I engaged with several of my colleagues from many of the other districts in the county in conversations with the Texas Workforce Commission, with SA Works, and subsequently some leadership through HEB, through Kate Rogers. And the conversation started about 3 or 4 years ago around how might we create these schools and pockets around the city that could be really engaged with the industry leaders and our local, and with respect to our local economy, to really create learning experiences for kids in K-12 that we're realizing that vision of both academically ready, but also employability.
And that seems to be the trend in education over the last several years is, like you say, it's great to be book smart, but you need to be employable.
That's right.
You need to have those tools to go into the workplace. And I would think that it's incumbent upon the school district to let's not educate all our kids and have them move away.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the interface with local industry leaders really is important, because they need to know, not only what they're interested in, what they're good at, they need to know what value that has in the local economy, and that there is opportunity. And we need to get them connected before they leave, so that they're aware how to access that industry, and that those opportunities do exist here in our community.
Right. That's a big component of what we do at BexarFest, is giving kids some real world work experience and help prepare them for the job market. We're putting kids in those kind of situations, and our particular thing is media production. So we're pairing up high school kids with clients and letting them see what the real world is like. You can learn that in the classroom, and you can learn it in the real world. What's the value of that real world experience?
Well, it's interesting that when we're young, we think we know a lot. And, I
remember when I was 18 and I knew everything.
That's right. I once knew everything. And, they need to understand what's expected in the workplace, that not all things are sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have to work through some conflict. You're going to have to work with different people and solve different challenges. And you're going to have expectations put upon you that must be met. And at the same time, the day you start a career, you're not necessarily worth that $80,000 a year that you think you're worth. You're going to have to demonstrate that you have value to add, and skills to bring to the table, and credentials that make you employable. But then at the same time, when kids have those experiences and they can, learn more about what they're good at and learn more about what they're interested in, it becomes a learning environment that is not a push. It's a pull. They just really engage at a different level. That curiosity that they used to have when they were 4 and 5 years old, where they want to know more and ask a bunch of questions. That's what you see happen when they're engaged in things that they determine to be relevant.
Absolutely. And I've had that conversation with other folks, that it's not just force feeding them anymore. It's the landscape has changed to the point where there's so many options and so much information so readily available that it's hard to tell kids this is what you're going to be. They're pretty self-determined now. They've become pretty self-determined. Speaking of when I was 18, I was pretty casual about school. I didn't put my best foot forward. I didn't take it too seriously. And I'm sure there are kids today with that same attitude. The CAST schools seem to be approaching that by designing their curriculum around, like you say, certain career fields, and engaging the kids in meeting them halfway. You've expressed an interest in this. You want to know more? Here's your opportunity. Let's make you successful. Let's work together to make you successful. Is that causing more students to engage, and are they engaging more deeply?
Well, with regard to CAST, we're opening in the fall, so it's a little preliminary to tell. But with regard to our career and technology programs that are similar, where kids early and often get connected to the real world, right, it starts to answer for them the questions of, when am I ever going to use this? And if I were to engage in the amount of time and effort required for me to produce what you're asking me to produce, what's in it for me? Right. And when they can see how this is going to be used in the real world, and how this could help me become more employable in a career path that excites me, with an earning potential and potential lifestyle that I envision for myself, it does change the game. They do engage differently. Sure. And they do see school is not a burden, but an opportunity for the first time in a long time in some cases.
Yeah, I wish I'd have had that attitude when I was in school, that this isn't a burden, this is an opportunity. You need to take advantage of this, and I just didn't.
Well, all of us didn't to a degree.
It's just a cold hard fact that 2/3 of the population of the East Central District is considered economically disadvantaged. How does that impact your students?
Well, I would say it impacts our staff. There's some requirements of them to understand that just because students come from maybe less optimal circumstances financially,
Right.
that they are very capable. So we have to maintain those expectations of them that they can achieve, and they can achieve at high levels, and they can do great things. And we got to give them opportunity. We got to give them access to our very best. Just because a kid enters our school system maybe behind where they should be, doesn't mean that we put them on a track that is different than what we're expecting from kids who might come a little more ready to learn because of their circumstances. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, kids who come from less privileged circumstances, they tend to not have their basic needs consistently met. And we've just got a program for that as a system to make sure that all kids, no matter their circumstances, have their basic needs consistently met, so that they can move beyond that Maslow's hierarchy and live in that complex worlds of Bloom's, where I'm ready to be creative. I'm ready to be challenged. I'm ready to take on the tough task of getting smarter and becoming more employable, because I'm not worried about those things that are basic that I don't have today or this week or this month or this year.
Right.
And so we've just got to be considerate of that and realize that that's a necessity that we got a program for as a system, if we're going to meet the needs of all of our kids, as we've committed to.
That's an interesting road to go down. Is I've had that conversation as well, that kids come from their background with some built-in expectations, and if you can overcome those expectations and make them aware that you have just as many opportunities as anybody else, you have just as much talent as anybody else, you can be just as successful as anybody else. Don't sell yourself short. And I certainly agree with you. I want to give every kid every opportunity to reach their full potential.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think that you where you come from is not as important as where you're going.
Yes, sir.
And believe in yourself and give yourself a chance, and don't sell yourself short, and you'll be surprised what you can achieve. You grew up in the East Central District. That's part. I saw that in your bio, that you went to school at the school you're now supervising. How have you seen the East Central District change in those years? You must have graduated 4 or 5 years ago.
You got it. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s is
Okay.
when I went through the system. And it's a lot larger. There's a lot more students. We're seeing a lot more residential development in areas that were traditionally rural. We're seeing a growing population of our urban community is growing. Our suburban community is growing, and our rural community is shrinking. All in all, though, it's still a very diverse and inclusive community. It's a community that has high expectations for its school system,
Right.
and high expectations for its children. A lot of traditional values, but a lot of modern thinking. And we pride ourselves and always have, even when I was a student, at making sure we had something to meet the desire and interest of every kid in their family. So, if you are dead set on going to an Ivy League school and you need that degree of academic experience, we have that. We've always had that, and we continue to have that, and everything in between. To include workforce development programs, leadership development programs, and we also pride ourselves in making sure that every kid has multiple opportunities to connect beyond the classroom in clubs and organizations and in different kinds of activities, to include service learning.
Right.
Which is how we got connected to this programming. Is we're very interested in engaging in our local community, both in the East Central community, but in the county and in the city, and to help our kids gain perspective, and to see what else is out there. And I don't want to get ahead of our conversation here, but this idea of living a life of gratitude and humility, in many ways gives us all hope, and we see that in our children.
Well, and yeah, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. That's one of my favorite conversations is instilling that into kids. Part of the mission of BearFest is we want to create caring, capable kids. That the process of embedding a production team in a nonprofit organization for weeks. It's not like they just go in and take the tour and walk out again that same afternoon. They are deeply engaged with their nonprofit partner for 6 or 8 weeks. And the purpose there is to give students the chance to not only learn what the nonprofit does, but why and how. And we want to put those kids in that position to be engaged with people who are expressing that passion and that service attitude. I call it a culture of caring. Sure. That we want to show kids that it's okay to be passionate about something. It's okay to care about a cause that doesn't necessarily pay the bills, doesn't necessarily put money in your pocket. That you're supporting the community and you're supporting others in need, and that has its own rewards. That has its own payoff that you don't measure in your bank account. Gosh, I don't even know how to ask the question. How does that impact your community? That those kids get those lessons and get that opportunity and get that experience and then come back into your community. That's bound to have some impact. Is it good?
It's great. I think that, as human beings, we have a tendency to be very egocentric. And when we're going through life and we run across difficulty from time to time, we tend to get very me-centric, and right. we think about all the things that we don't have and all of the crosses that we have to bear, and we tend to have pity parties. And when we, like our children, get an opportunity to get out there and realize that there's opportunities to help others, and it doesn't cost anything,
right?
And when you get out there and start to serve, you see that there are people just like you who are going through life and struggling in many similar ways, but they're out there learning and serving others. And in doing so, that perspective changes. And I think, it gives us hope that we too can overcome whatever our current condition is. And that, when we're in our worst of times, doing just the opposite of becoming me-centric and really getting out into the world and helping others, and take that thinking of ourselves less, if you will, tends to help us get through those tough times. Sure. And, sure. It's just been a wonderful experience taking the classroom outside of the four walls in service. In projects such as these, our kids learn so much about themselves. They learn so much about our community, and it really expands their view of what's possible for them.
One of the things I've noticed in the 4 years that the festival has gone on is when the kids sign up, when they register to be a team in the festival, it's pretty lighthearted. It's pretty casual. Oh, this will be fun. This is kind of something out of the norm, and it'll be a few laughs, and we'll get together and giggle and play and shoot a video. Then they meet their nonprofit, and it's like somebody throws a switch. That this isn't playtime. This is for real. This is serious. These are people with real needs that are counting on us.
That's right.
To help them meet those needs. And it's remarkable how suddenly the students take it. It goes from being playtime to being work time, and they take it very seriously. And that is encouraging to me that they have that level of maturity. You don't expect it. I certainly didn't when we first started the festival. I didn't expect them to take it so seriously, but they do. And it's encouraging to me that the next generation has that sense of responsibility and is willing to step up and give of themselves to be of value to somebody else. And what we're doing, we're kind of sneaking a lesson in on them that they, in the course of doing this production, we take a hands-off approach. We pair up the teams, and then we, as the organizers of the festival, walk away. What you create is up to you and your client. And so we're instilling self-confidence. The kids are learning decision-making. They're learning how to collaborate. They're learning how to negotiate those work skills that they're going to need no matter what field they go into. That again has to be a value to you as an educator, that they take what they learn in the classroom, that, okay, in the classroom, I'm a free agent. I am only accountable for my work and my grade and what I do. In the real world, I'm going to have to collaborate. I'm going to have to work with other people and develop that kind of interrelational skills. That has to be a value to you as a teacher, as an educator.
Oh, tremendous value. The approach that you guys take, to me, is the difference between being input driven versus output driven, right? So, you're being an architect of an experience. You're setting the parameters, right? You're designing the specifications, but then you're giving kids and teams of kids the autonomy to explore within those specifications and to make decisions about how to represent that organization or serve that organization through this particular endeavor. And again, going back to that push-pull environment for learning, it becomes a pull environment. They need to ask questions. They need to learn more. They need to make decisions. They need to reach consensus as a team. And then they need to, design and iterate and create and then refine all of that down. And there is a tremendous amount of learning secretly being embedded as you it comes from that. It transfers, right? It transfers.
Right.
Not only does it build self-efficacy in each of the children, but it's transferable into the real world. That's the way we work in the real world,
When you get out in the real world, this is the way it's going to be. You're accountable to other people, and you have to rely on other people.
You're not going to be told exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. You're going to be given specifications, right? Parameters, and you're going to have to dig in.
Exactly.
Decisions.
Another interesting aspect that I wasn't expecting in the festival is that when we pair students with nonprofit organizations, the students are in a new environment in that they're working with a client, but they're in a new relationship. That these students have always, they've interacted with adults before, but it's always been parent, child, teacher, student, adult, kid. And now it's in working with their client, it's peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
You're my provider, I'm your client. We are peers and we work together, and each of us has our role, and you don't answer to me and I don't answer to you. We collaborate. Again, that's a new experience for the kids that I think would be of value as they move on through high school and beyond.
Yeah, I think it's important. Kids understand how to code switch, right? It's those kinds of experiences that give them the opportunity to know that, when I'm with my friends and I dress a certain way, or I talk a certain way, or behave a certain way, that's cool. That's the appropriate register for that environment. But now that I'm engaged in a nonprofit organization that's doing real work, trying to solve real problems, and while we may be building a good relationship, we're now peers, and we've got to conduct ourselves. I've got to conduct myself maybe a little bit differently than when I do with my friends at school. And whether that means I dress a little bit different, or I'm a little bit more considerate of being on time, or a little bit more responsible for doing my part, or using the appropriate language, or listening more than I speak as a part of a team. Being able to just change their register to be accepted and respected in an environment that is peer-to-peer, in a professional setting, in an adult kind of setting, real world setting, is real important for our kids. In the context of school, they may or may not get that.
Well, and I'm hopefully we're providing an opportunity for them that enhances what they're getting in school. We certainly don't want to denigrate what they're learning in school, but we want to give them a positive experience in the festival. That, wow, working in the real world is challenging and rewarding. And we want to, again, coming back to keeping them in the community, the same thing you're saying is we want to show them that there are opportunities right here in San Antonio to be a media producer, or to work in a nonprofit organization, that you can take the education and the skill and the training that you've learned here and apply it here. So stick around. We need you.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Toscano, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate the time. I appreciate what you're doing for our students. And I look forward to having East Central High School in this year's festival and for years to come.
You can count us in. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.